I want to introduce our presenter, the amazing Kristen Guiseppi. She is the director of the UH Law Center's Free Law Pipeline Program, which is an award-winning program on campus, and they do amazing things. And I'm going to hand it off to her for her to tell you more.
Thank you so very much, Jamie. That introduction was absolutely amazing. You made me blush a little bit, so I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. As Jamie said, my name is Kristen Guiseppi, and I'm the Director of Pipeline Programs at the University of Houston Law Center. And a little bit about me, I am originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. I am the first member in my family to attend college in America. And I've been working in this space for about 10 years. I initially started working with pre-law programs in New York at a law school there. And then in 2014, okay, time flies, but in 2014, I moved to Houston and I created the UHLC pre-law pipeline program. So just to give you a little bit more information about pipeline programs and this terminology that we throw around. So pipeline programs is essentially a term that's used to describe programs that are created to help students get needed resources. So if you think about a pipe, right? Basically, you know, nothing can leak out of the pipe unless the pipe is leaky, right? And what that means is that for a lot of students going through high school, going through college, and getting into law school, there's a lot of information that they're not necessarily receiving. And so what we do is we put them into this pipeline where they're getting information as they flow along the pipeline, and that makes them a better student, a better professional, or just better in terms of what it is that they're trying to achieve. So the pre-law pipeline program, which I created, is chock full of resources and information for students who are interested in attending law school. Now, today, I am going to talk about, law school items, but specifically, I'm going to share information so that you can determine whether law school is right for you. Now, I'm here to say I think it is. I think it's right for anybody just because of all the skills that you develop as a potential lawyer. But, what I want you guys to do as I go through this presentation is really think about, is this something that I should do? Because there's a lot of things that you need to think about as you prepare for law school. It's a lot of hard work. You also need to think about the financial aspect of it. And so in this presentation, I'm going to discuss a number of different items, not only just whether or not law school is right for you, but ways that you can prepare for law school so that you can be a better aspiring law school student. And we're going to have Q&A for about the last 80 minutes of the presentation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box as I'm going along, because if you're like me, you're going to forget your questions by the time the Q&A comes around. So go ahead and put them in the chat box, and Jamie has generously volunteered to read those to me at the end of the presentation. And so we will try to get through as many of your questions as we can. So without further ado, I'm going to continue on with my presentation. Thank you all and welcome. So what is the legal profession? Many of you might know law and the legal profession, just because of certain shows on TV like Suits, for example, or Law and Order SVU. You see the prosecutor going to the courtroom, and sometimes they may be outrageous, sometimes they may not, but basically what their role is to persuade a jury that their client is in the right? But really, if we want to dig deep into what is the legal profession, it's really the study and the development and the application of law. Now, law governs everything within the country. And so what lawyers do is that they study the different laws that govern different cities, states, entities, or whatever, and they become experts in those fields. And then with the knowledge that they have, they apply the law to ensure that people are remaining on the right side of the law, right? Now, for a lot of people, the legal profession is a very noble and conservative profession. And what I mean by that is that it's a traditional profession. It's a lot of the tenets of law stem from way back in the days. And so there's not a lot of change that has occurred within law. It's not one of those exceedingly progressive fields like medicine, for example. Law isn't, but there's a certain nobility that comes with that. And so when you join the legal profession, you're joining a long line of this noble sort of history that has come about over the years. Now, knowing law and being able to apply law means that you're uniquely positioned to change law, right? So now that you know the ins and outs of everything that's happening, you can enact change. You can now go and you can argue persuasively in favor of laws that have been in existence forever, to now support the progressive nature of the city or the state or wherever you live, right? If there's a community and you realize that the laws that are in place are not helping that community, you as a lawyer are uniquely situated to now say, hey, we need to look at this law and we need to change this. So these are some of the things that really makes law stand out. Now, of course, a lot of people go into law because they want to make money, and that's fine too, right? But the big thing and the major thing that I want you to take away from this is that you need to figure out what your why is, because your why is what's going to take you through the entire process of law school and even getting into the legal profession. So what can you do with a law degree? Now, I love talking about law degrees because a law degree is one of the most versatile degrees that you can get, right? So with a law degree, you can do almost anything. You can be an educator. You can be the dean of a college. You can, be a senator. You can be a writer. And the reason is because the law degree develops certain skill sets that you can use within any field that you want, right? And there's so many areas of law that exist that it doesn't matter what major you specialize in college. And I want you guys to make note of that and just kind of, pack that away in your brain. If your brain isn't as, if your brain is like mine and is not very good at holding facts, then you might want to write this down. But you want to make note that it doesn't matter what major you study in college, because there's so many different areas of law that whatever major you have, it will be a good complement with the law degree that you receive, okay? So with that being said, is law school right for you? So what is law school? What happens when you go to law school? So basically in law school, you go through college, you get your bachelor's degree, you apply for a law degree. So a law degree is a Juris Doctor. It's called a JD by most people, and it's a graduate degree. So you definitely need to have your bachelor's degree first and foremost. Now, the JD is typically a 3-year program. Even though it's a graduate program, you don't graduate with a master's degree, which is what a typical graduate program is, right? What you do is you graduate with a doctorate, which is why the law degree is a little bit longer than a typical graduate degree, and if you look at it that way. Now, the full-time JD degree time span is about 3 years. And if you decide to go part-time, then it's a 4-year program. Now, not a lot of law schools have part-time programs, but if this is something that you're interested in, for example, if it is that you want to work full-time and then go to school part-time, then that is one of the factors that you're going to have to take into consideration when you're applying to law school. Now, some law schools allow you to start your first year part-time and then transfer into the full-time program. So as you're also looking at law schools, you want to ask questions like that. If I were to start a part-time program, can I transfer into the full-time program during the course of the career? Now, one thing that I wanted to bring to your attention about this is that when you graduate, for example, if you attend the law school and you graduate and you start off with a part-time program, and you graduate with a part-time program degree, it does not look any different from the full-time degree, right? It does not say part-time program applicant, JD. It doesn't say that. It says UHLC Juris Doctor, right? So if you're thinking, oh, I want to do part-time, but I don't want my degree to look a certain way, I don't want people to know, whatever, then that's fine. It's not going to look any different. So if part-time works for you and for whatever it is you have going on, then that is something you should seriously consider. Now, so most people do the JD and they graduate, and that's when they start practicing law after they get their JD. But some people may decide, I want to specialize, right? So for example, there's an attorney I just read up on, they work at NASA. So what they did was they got a JD, which allows them to practice law, but then they also specialize it into international law. So they have an LLM for international law. So the LLMs really specialize you for a specific type of law. If it is that you're thinking that, in addition to working in the general law space, I want to be specialized in this particular area. So that is also something you can think about. Now, it's not as popular as the JD, and not a lot of people go that route, but if it is something that you are interested in, it should be a question on your list when you talk to admissions counselors. So what are the law school requirements? As I mentioned before, you need a bachelor's degree, definitely. And you need to take an entrance exam. Now I'm going to put a little asterisk here because there are some programs that currently exist that allow you to attend law school without an entrance exam. So we will come back to that. Now, the entrance exams for law school have historically been the LSAT and most recently the GRE, or the Graduate Records Examination. The LSAT is the test that has been used for many, many years. And so a lot of law schools have already figured out how to use the LSAT score to determine whether students should be admitted to their schools and whether or not they should receive scholarships. The GRE is newer. There are about 65 law schools currently that accept the GRE. And so if this is a route that you're taking, if you want to do the GRE, then that is also something you want to research. Is this particular law school that I'm interested in going to accept the LSAT or the GRE? Now, the GRE comes in handy if it is that you're deciding maybe you want to do a dual degree, right? Maybe you want to do a JD MBA, right? And sometimes, well, not an MBA, let's say an MS in, I don't know, health administration. So I'm just making up stuff, right? But let's say you wanted to do a JD MS. Now, most grad schools take the GRE exam, right? Now, if it is that you decide, hey, I want to do a dual degree, I want to do it in MS, and this law school is also accepting a GRE and it has a dual degree, then that might be the route you want to take instead of having to take the LSAT and the GRE. Okay, so you also want to be thinking about that as you're looking at law schools and as you're determining what is the best law school for you. As with many applications, you require a personal statement, and the personal statement answers the question, why do you want to go to law school? You want to submit a diversity statement, or as some applications listed as other statement, which answers the question, what is that diverse or different perspective that you bring to the law school classroom? You need an official transcript from all of the colleges and universities you've attended. An addendum if for whatever reason, there is a hole in your application. And I say that to say, if, for example, your transcript, the first year of your transcript, you may have gotten like a whole bunch of D's and C's, and maybe something was going on in your personal life that kind of caused you to not do as well as you typically would have done. And then for the rest of your law school career, the college career, you did well, right? The addendum comes into this to kind of discuss what happened that first year. So for example, an example of where you would use an addendum. You applied to college, you thought med school was going to be where you're at, you watched Grey's Anatomy and you're like, yes, I want to be the next Meredith Grey. You got to college, you realize, okay, so Meredith Grey, I am not. But my skills, I'm really good in business, right? And so you transfer. But because you took that first semester of science classes or that first year of classes and you got C's and D's, now your GPA is hurting because of that, right? Now, when you submit your application, these counselors are not going to know that. They're not going to know that you thought that med school was going to be your route, but you realize that that's not where your skill sets are at, or that's not where your passion is. And so that's where the addendum comes into play. You write a short statement and you say, this is why my first semester or my first year grades look like this. But if you look at the rest of my trajectory, I increased my GPA and I've graduated with an X, GPA, whatever. I skipped resume, but a resume is very important as well. You want to showcase on your resume all of the things that you do, because what counselors are looking for are specific things. Did you work during your college career, for example? So if you have a job and you've been working throughout college, you want to put that on there. Were you a member of any groups? Law schools love students with leadership skills. So if you were in a leadership position, which is something that you should try to do in college, if you were in a leadership position of a group, you want to put that on there. You also want to put things on there that kind of showcase your personality. So are you part of a choir? Right? What other things do you do to fill your time? Because law schools love well-rounded students. So you want to also convey that in your resume. Are there certain things that you're very, very interested in, right? Are you an avid tennis sports fan or tennis player? Do you volunteer with the, tennis association? Like, they want to see that sort of details about you and your life, because that's going to help them paint a picture of who you are. Recommendation letters. You typically need 2 recommendation letters. Some schools may ask you for 3, but what you want to do is you want to get a recommendation letter from faculty members, because they can speak to your strengths within the classroom. And you don't want to get, a faculty member in whose class you were sleeping in. So if you're in the back row and you're sleeping during do not ask that person. That is not the right faculty member to ask. You want to ask the faculty member you asked questions to. You stood up and you answered certain things. You took the lead on different things. You submitted great papers to. And even those whose class you enjoyed. Those are the faculty members you want to ask for recommendation letters, because they can say, hey, this person was in my class, this person got an A, this person got a B, but within the class, this person asked these inquisitive questions, right? This person added to the perspective. This person is an intellect. So you want faculty members who can speak to you in those sort of terms. One thing that I tell a lot of my students is that when the semester starts, what you probably should do is go up to the faculty member and say, hey, I want to apply to law school and I would love if you can write my letter of recommendation. So what I'm going to do throughout the semester is work hard in your class. And I would love for you at the end of the semester to give me an assessment and hopefully write me a letter of recommendation, right? So now that faculty member is going to look at you for the entire semester. That faculty member is going to take certain notes. You can even tell them, what are the certain things you want them to look at specifically, because then your letter can be a lot more informed. So you want a recommendation letter definitely from faculty members, but if it is that you have an employer, you have a long-standing relationship with that employer, and they can speak to your skills on the job, that is also someone you would want to get a recommendation letter from. So going back to the entrance test for law school, you have the LSAT, which is the main one. You have the GRE, which we discussed briefly. But there's also a new program that exists called the ABA 503 program, which states that the law school, for example, UHLC, can accept up to 10% of their incoming class from the University of Houston. Right? And those particular students do not necessarily need to take the LSAT, but there are certain eligibility requirements that you need to meet, right? So you need to be in the top, your SAT. So first of all, this relies now on your SAT scores. So your SAT scores need to be within the top 15 percentile. I hope I'm saying that right. It's either the top 15 or the top 85th. I always get it mixed up, but it needs to be within that top tier number of SAT scores. And you need to have a 3.6 GPA or higher. So those are the 2 eligibility criteria that would help you be considered for entrance through the ABA 503 program. Now, if you do have further questions about that, I recommend that you reach out to the law school admission counselors, because they would be able to have more information for you on that. And going back to the LSAT, so as I mentioned to you before, the LSAT determines your admission status with law schools, but it also a way that they determine whether or not you receive scholarships, right? And I'll explain to you a little bit of how that works later on in the presentation. So the LSAT is typically 3.5 hours long. Now, I'm talking to you about the traditional LSAT because they've made some changes for COVID, but they might go back to the original. So it makes sense that you know what the original looks like, so that should they revert to that, you have an understanding of it. So the LSAT is typically about 3.5 hours long. They have 5 multiple choice sections. 4 of those sections are scored and 1 is unscored, and you do not know which section would be unscored, so you just have to do well for all of the sections. There's 100 to 102 multiple choice questions, and they score on a scale of 120 to 180. So when you take the LSAT, you get a score. It's going to fall within that range, and depending on the range or depending on what your score is, that helps your eligibility with different law schools, okay? So if, for example, you take the LSAT and you got a 145, then you want to look at law schools that accept students with a score of about 145 or within a range of maybe 143 to 150, okay? Now, on the LSAT, there are 3 different types of questions. You're going to have reading comprehension questions. So if you're not really very good with reading comprehension, you want to start by reading a lot of heavy text, a lot of complex texts from now to kind of develop those skills. They have logical reasoning section, or sections rather, and that basically tests how you can logically think through situations. And then, of course, analytical reasoning, how you can analyze different questions and texts, and how you can come about certain solutions. So there are certain courses that you can take to help develop these skill sets. Just off the top of my head, I'm thinking if you do math or if you do certain sciences, those require you to be very, very logical. Certain honors courses also. In terms of reading comprehension, if you do like literature classes, if you do phronesis, there are a lot of classes that require you to read a lot of text. So those are the classes that you want to take to develop those skill sets. Now, if it is that you know that there are certain skills that you don't currently have, then what you should be doing is planning to help strengthen those skills throughout your college career. So by the time you get to taking the LSAT, it's not so much of an issue for you. Now, the reason why these skills are tested is because these skills are what you need to be successful in law school. So it just makes sense anyway that you develop these skills, not just for the LSAT, but for success in law school. So just planning out your school career with these particular skill sets, putting classes that would help you develop these skill sets would be beneficial to you for the LSAT and for law school. So as a result of COVID, LSAC converted the LSAT to, I guess, a digital home version, which allows you to take the LSAT at home. Now, instead of the typical 3.5-hour test, it's now a shorter test. It's not 5 sections anymore, it's 3 sections. And those sections cover the reading comprehension, the analytical reasoning, and the logical reasoning, just like the traditional LSAT. You also need to submit a writing sample, and that is online as well. And so you can, this writing sample, you don't need to take the same day as the LSAT, but you definitely need to take it before you submit your materials to the CAS, which is LSAC's platform that pulls all your information together. It pulls your transcripts, your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, your diversity statement, all together into one report. So before they can pull that together and send out your reports to law schools, you want to have submitted a writing sample. So ways that you can prepare for the LSAT. Now, Khan Academy has a free LSAT prep that you can take. They have diagnostics, scheduling tools. You can create a schedule and a curriculum for yourself that can help you focus on your weaker areas. And so I recommend that you go to that website and you check it out. I think that it has been very beneficial. I don't have stats as of right now, but from what I've heard, just based off of students using Khan Academy, it has been very helpful for them. Now, I think that, and this is just my personal feelings on this and my thoughts on this, if you are a great what is the word I'm looking for? If you're someone who can study, you're a great self-study person, you self-motivated, then Khan would definitely work for you, because a lot of this is you inspiring and motivating yourself to continue working in this way. Now, if it is that you're a person, you realize that you need to have a teacher, you need to have that sort of format where you have someone in front of the classroom and that's how you maintain your focus, then you want to look at some of the other LSAT preps, such as, Kaplan, Print and Review, Blueprint, PowerScore, all of those other test prep providers, because they would be able to provide you with a platform that you're most comfortable with. One of the things that I always focus on is, making sure that you study using your learning styles. So if it is that, just doing everything on your own and online is not something that is in line with your learning style, then it takes a lot more work to force yourself to get into that mode versus just finding something that is along the lines of your learning style. So you want to look into that, and you want to take that into consideration as you are deciding how you're going to prepare for the LSAT. So moving on to your personal statement. So I spoke about the LSAT as the entrance test. I touched a little bit on the resume. Going on to your personal statement. What is the personal statement, right? Why do you need to submit this? So the personal statement basically answers the question, why do you want to go to law school? Now, there are many ways that you can go about this. You can have an emotional story that has led you up to the decision that you want to go to law school. One that I know a lot of students have used in the past is that they were impacted by maybe a housing law, right? Maybe they were homeless, they were rendered homeless because of a certain housing law, or maybe their family members were not able to get to the United States because of an immigration law. And because of those experiences, they have now decided that this is not something that they want to continue. And so they want to become a lawyer. They want to go to law school so that they can be a part of that change, of that law change, to now benefit other families so they don't have to go that route, right? Or you can go through the logical route, right? Maybe these are the skill sets that I have. I'm really great with logical reasoning, analytical reasoning. I love reading. I'm an avid reader, and my skill sets align with those of a lawyer. I have like an intellectual curiosity. I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner, and because of those things, I think that law would make the best sense for me. So you can go about either way, but what you want to make sure that you highlight, and going back to what I asked you before, is what is your why? What is the reason that you're going to law school, and you want to hold on to that? You want to know your audience, right? You're not going to be like, hey, yo, I'm applying to law school because you know what? It's sweet. It's mad sweet. And it's the best thing ever. Oh, I just won't make money. No, that is not how you're going to write your personal statement, because now you're thinking you're going to have lawyers reading your materials. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to impress them, right? And you're trying to show them that this is something you can do, that you're mature enough to do this. So knowing that you're going to have lawyers, you're going to use formal writing. You're going to double check everything that you're sending. You can't be having punctuation mistakes, grammar mistakes, any of those writing mistakes, right? Because lawyers are great writers. And so that's something that they're looking at when you submit your statements. And so when you have your first draft, you should have a group of people who you have reading your statements, right? So they can find all these different things. And Jamie raised her hand. She has volunteered. So you can all send your statement to Jamie, right? But you also have the writing center. You want to make sure you have different people. If you have a mentor, you want to make sure your mentor reads it, because you want to make sure that your message is clear and that it's coming out. You want to make your connection, whether it is that emotional connection or that logical connection. You want to show your intellectual curiosity, and you want to show that you have personality. You know, nobody really wants a robot, but what they want is to see who you are as a person. Who are you? And why do you want to go to law school? And you want to be honest. Now, one mistake that a lot of people do with their personal statement is that they talk about someone else's story, right? So, if we were to use me as an example, well, you know, my family went through so much in Trinidad, and, you know, life was so hard for them. And I think that this is how it should be. And so because of their struggle, I want to go to law school. Not so much, right? Because that's not your story. That's not your personal story, right? What happened to you in that struggle? What did you learn through that struggle? That is what you want to bring out in your personal statement. And as with all good statements and all good writing, you want to have an intro, a body, and a conclusion. Okay, so what I recommend is, before even starting, you wanna ask that question: why do I want to go to law school? Come up with a few reasons, and then pick the one that resonates most with you, and then start writing a draft from there. So your diversity statement, and I'm going to see if I can shift this a little bit because it's kind of blocking my screen. So the diversity statement is the statement that answers the question: how do you and your diversity, be it your culture, race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, ideology, age, socioeconomic status, academic background, employment, or personal experience, say that 5 times really quickly, how that will now provide meaningful insight into the classroom, right? How does you living under a bridge bring a different perspective? So of course, that perspective is going to be different from someone who may have been raised in a different country, which would be different from someone who was raised in the Northeast, which is different from someone who was raised in the South. Like, all of those experiences is going to be so different. And so what you want to do is convey, how does this make me unique in this situation, and bring this different perspective to the classroom discussion? Because in the classroom, you want to be able to bring a perspective that no one else has thought about, right? Because if you think about diversity, if you think about how things improve, it's by someone standing up and saying, okay, but let's look at it differently. Let's consider this instead. Right? So these are things that you want to do. And if you think about the way society is, nothing is black and white. There are going to be a lot of different things going on. And sometimes your perspective, your experience can resonate with the community so much more than someone else's. And that is something that needs to be considered. So in your diversity statement, you want to be answering the question: what is that perspective, that different perspective, diverse perspective that I bring or can bring to the classroom? It is not a duplicate of your personal statement. It's really an enhancement, okay? It's something, it digs a little bit deeper into what it is about you that makes you stand out. So going into law school preparation, and I'm keeping an eye on time. I have like about, I want to say maybe 5 more minutes to myself, I think. Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to calculate math. So what do you do now to prepare? So you want to be taking challenging courses. Like I mentioned to you before, there are certain things that they test in the LSAT and certain things that they're looking for in law school. So you definitely want to create a curriculum that allows you to work on those skills. So I'm going to go into this a little bit more because I think it requires a little bit more emphasis, only because I want you guys to be able to leave with some to-do things. But definitely what you want to be doing, what you want to think about is, what are the skills that I currently have and what are the skills that I need to develop? And then create a study plan around that. You want to study for the LSAT. You want to start at least 1 year out from when you want to apply. Some students start 3 months out from when they apply. But I think if you're self-studying, you definitely want to start a year out. If you're not, and you're going through a traditional LSAT prep service like Princeton Review, Blueprint, PowerScore, all those, then you can start three months out. You want to intern with an attorney. You want to shadow attorneys. Maybe you want to sit in a law school class. You can email, like if, for example, you're interested in immigration law, you can go to the law school's website. You can see who's teaching for the semester and reach out to the faculty member and politely ask if you can join in on one of his classes. And they would say yes or no. Some may say no just because of the nature of what it is that they want to teach, but odds are majority will say yes because they're all very excited to help the next generation of lawyers. So you can do that. If there's something specific, if for example you're a STEM major and you're thinking maybe IP law is something I want to do, then maybe you can sit in on an IP class, maybe early on in the semester, because as the semester goes along, of course, everything is going to be a lot more complex. So you want to try and get in on the classes early in the semester so that you can get that introduction like everyone else. You also want to make time to attend different pre-law development events and sessions, kind of like this one. There's a diversity pre-law symposium, a 2-day pre-law symposium on October 10th and October 17th, which my office is pulling together. And at that symposium, we're going to be discussing things like professionalism in the legal field, submitting your strongest law school application, law school financial aid, the versatility of the law degree, et cetera, et cetera. We're also going to have a law school fair where we're going to invite different law schools to attend so that they can meet with you guys in a law school fair arena. But LSAC has a lot of different forums that are available. And so you can just go onto their website, maybe type in LSAC workshops on forums, and they will take you directly to the link. They have a variety of them available. So just make sure that you register for the one that's most convenient to you. As I mentioned, and I know I keep saying this, I keep emphasizing this, but you want to develop the skills that you need in law school so that your transition to law school is not going to be as difficult or challenging as it has historically been for students who did not think about these things. You want to take classes that would develop those skill sets. So you want to take classes such as, and I made a list for myself, Intro to Law, Intro to Constitutional Law, Logic 1, Logic 2, Law, Science, and Morality. So you want to sit in on those classes because those classes are going to challenge you in those ways. You want to work on your writing skills. Lawyers are writers. So you want to start maybe add Grammarly to your apps, right? You want to start taking writing classes. You want to become best friends with a writing center because you want to now develop your writing skills. So it's not something that you have to develop when you get into law school. Law schools are performers. So you want to develop your oral communication and your listening skills. Maybe take a theater class, maybe take an oral speaking class, or, there are groups, professional groups that exist like Toastmasters. I think we used to have one on campus, but you want to attend organizations like that because they can help develop your speaking skills. You want to develop your research skills. For every law that exists, a lawyer has to research things. So you want to work on those things. And of course, you want to develop your personal skills as well. So time management, organization. You want to, some people are able to multitask, some people are not, but these are skills that you want to develop because you're going to have to, one, multitask a lot when you're in law school. Two, you're going to have a schedule and stick to it. And three, you're going to have to be organized. So if those are skills that that you don't have currently, then start putting things in place to develop them. Because again, once you get to law school, your focus should not be, oh, I need to develop these skills. Your focus should be, I need to get what it is this teacher is saying in the classroom. Okay. And of course, you can do different things to show your commitment to public service. You can volunteer at different organizations. There are a lot of legal organizations that exist, even locally, that look for volunteers. So maybe sign up for one of their events and help out and see what it is that they do. There are many ways that you can get experience, and don't let the fact that you may not know a lawyer, you may not have a lawyer in your family, stop you from building those connections. Because one of the things that you need to do is network. That's a skill that's very important within the legal profession. So you can simply just draft up an email, and you can email someone who works in the field that you're interested in, who is currently working in that field and holding different events, because that person, again, would probably be willing to help you and take you under their wing. So never be afraid to reach out and ask for help, because a lot of people out there are interested in helping you. And so this is what I wanted to provide a little bit more focus on. So if you are a freshman or freshman rather, you now have 4 years ahead of you, right? And so what you want to do is you want to create a plan for each semester where you are developing the skills that you know you're weakest in. Okay, so if, for example, you sit down, you create that list. Okay, I am good at organizing, but I'm not good at management. I'm good at logical reasoning, but I'm not good at reading comprehension. So you're going to create your lists. And what you're going to do is for each weakness or area that you need to improve, you're going to find a class that would help you develop those skills. And in each semester, you're going to make sure you've registered for one of those classes, because now that class is going to help you develop the skills throughout your college career. So you're going to have your what is it, 2 semesters per year listed out. So that's 8 semesters. And you're going to schedule in each of those semesters one class that's going to help you develop a skill. And if it is that you take that one class and your skill isn't fully developed, then you take the part 2 of the class, or you take another similar class, maybe with a different content area that would help you develop those skills, because that's going to help you get the skills that you need to do well in law school and on the LSAT. Now, moving on to your second year, so you only have 3 years. You're going to do more or less the same things, but now you're also going to be looking at, getting an internship, right? Now that you have that first year of college under your belt, you can now venture into, okay, let me see what extracurriculars I can do. Maybe I can be the leader of a group. So in your first year, you're going to join a group because you want to know what the group is about. You want to just be a member. The second year, you try out for a leadership position, because law schools love to see leaders, right? So that second year, your sophomore year, you're doing more of the same, but now you're adding on different things. You're adding on extracurricular activities, and you're increasing your responsibility. Going into your third year, now at this point, if you don't have an internship, you definitely want to try and get an internship. You want to make sure that if you're not in a leadership position, that you're in a leadership position. You're also checking to see where you're at with your skills development and making sure that you are where you need to be. And you're going to start the process of studying for the LSAT, right? So by the end of the junior year, going into your senior year, you should have a plan on taking the LSAT the first semester of your senior year. Why? Because you want to take the LSAT and you want to apply to law school to start the fall after you graduate. Now, of course, this plan is going to look different, which is why I say create a 1 to 2 year plan. If you're someone and you're like, I don't think I want to go to law school straight out of college, then you create a 2-year plan. But if it is that going into your senior year, you want to go to law school right after college, which, by the way, is something you should have been planning from day one as a sophomore or as a freshman, then you figure out, okay, if I want to go to law school, then I know I need to take the LSAT. I know I want to get my application in early. So we're thinking about November of your senior year. So what that means is that the latest I should take my LSAT is October of my senior year. So what that means, and we're working backwards, is that I should be studying either in the spring or in the summer so that I can take it. Now, I usually recommend students take the LSAT twice. For one main reason, a lot of students, when they take the LSAT the first time, they have a lot of nerves, they get very anxious. And so, that affects their performance. So I usually say, take it the first time, don't harp on your score. If you get a great score, then great. If you don't get a good score, that's okay. You got the experience. Now, whatever experience you had, whatever happened during that time that you're taking the LSAT, make note of that, and let's put things in place to address those things. So the next time you take it, those things are not going to be an issue. But in your senior year, that's what you need to be thinking about. I need to have my LSAT score by November. So working backwards, do you need to start studying from your junior year? Do you need to start studying for at the beginning of spring, right before you graduate? Or can you study in the summer, right? You want to think about if it is that I am applying early on in the process, then I need to get it done by October. If I'm applying late in the process, which I typically don't recommend, but some students have to apply late on in the process, then you want to think about, okay, then I need to definitely have the best application out there. I definitely need to have the best LSAT score. I definitely need to have the best GPA, because towards the end of the process, law schools are now trying to ensure that they have the median scores that they need, right? The median LSAT scores, the median GPA. So while at the beginning of the process, they may be a little bit more lenient, at the end, they're not as lenient for a number of different reasons, but that being the main one. So you want to make sure that you have a plan in place and that you follow that plan to ensure that you get in early in the process so that you can get first dibs on admissions and scholarship consideration. How do you get this information? And I realize I'm running out of time. So guys, I'm going to go through this really very quickly because I know you probably have a lot of questions. But how do you get this information? You want to go to LSAC's website, Law School Transparency. You want to read up on law schools, because going to law school is great, but you also want to go to law school which is the best fit. Meaning that if there are certain things that you need in your experience to ensure that you perform at your best, you want to make sure that this law school that you're selecting and you're going to attend would be the ones that would allow you to perform at your best. So you want to look at school size. Would you prefer smaller classrooms, or are you okay in larger classrooms? Cost is cost a financial burden? Because if so, you want to get scholarships, and if so, you want to get a high LSAT score, and if so, you want to apply early in the cycle. Location is another thing. Do you like winters? Do you want to be frozen or not? Do you just like when it's hot all the time? So you want to take all these things into consideration as you are looking at the different law schools. And going back to the median LSAT and the GPA, what you want to do is, for law schools, they all have this listed. So when you go to the website, you're going to see all of this information listed, and this information is important to you. What this is saying, like I'm looking at UH, for example, what this is saying is that they accept students within a certain range. Let's say that range is 155 to 165, right? But the median score is 160. So what you want to be doing is, if you want to get scholarships, you want to be getting above that median LSAT score, because that means that you're closer to getting scholarships. Versus if you're below that score, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be admitted. It just means that you may not get scholarships, or you may not get as much scholarships as you would if you're above the median LSAT score. Same with the GPA. It's the same kind of principle. You want to be getting, you want to be scoring above that to increase your chances of a scholarship. It doesn't say that you won't get a scholarship if you're below it, but your chances increase the higher you are, or the more that you're away from the GPA. And same with all the other schools. But I will make a point. Schools don't just focus on your scores. They look at the entire application. They look at you holistically. So while they use these scores to inform decisions, they also look at you as a candidate, which is why your personal statement, your diversity statement, your resume, and your letters all need to be A1, because they're going to read all of those materials and make their final assessment once they've taken everything into consideration.